Hi, everyone. It's George LaRocque with WorkTech again, and we've got some more exciting industry funding news for you. Sounding Board, an innovative leadership coaching marketplace, closed a $30 million Series B round. And joining me today is Sounding Board CEO and co-founder Christine Tao. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and chat, George.
Yeah, it's great to meet you. And I'm excited too, because I'm excited about this category. There's been so much focus on coaching and leadership development, and it's needed. It's really needed out there. And it's top of mind, right? For HR people, for leaders in the business. And, with so many challenges in the market around retention and development and learning, it just makes sense. And I want to dig in on the solution, but can you just introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about Sounding Board?
Absolutely. So I'm Christine Tao. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Sounding Board. We are a scalable leadership coaching platform designed for the enterprise. And we are also, I talk about the fact that we're also female founded. So, we're really excited because with this round of funding, I heard this incredible stat, George, which was less than 5% of female-led companies go on to raise a Series B from the seed. And that's starting from a statistic of less than 3% of companies overall that are female-led, even receiving venture funding in the first place. So, as a founder, we all know, funding is a milestone and it's a means for us to continue to grow and scale the business. But, it's been exciting for us this week with the announcement to know that, we're really sort of bucking and breaking a lot of what's happening out there, whether it's in HR tech or even in the VC funding landscape.
Yeah. Our industry, when you look at your customers, the leaders in HR and leadership and development, what's interesting is it really does skew female in comparison, I should say, to other industries. So the last research that I had done, psychographic and demographic, was like 50% of the leaders were women. And that's great, but we can do a lot better on the tech front. I'm not meeting 50% of the founders are not women, and it's good to see things, being more representative or starting to get a little bit more representative of the market that we serve. So I'm with you on that, and congrats, because it's I think people are confused that because there's so much money flowing out there that it's easier or that it's easy to raise money, and it's not. There might be more money, but there's a lot more competition for that money as well. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's
so
right.
Congrats.
And I think we see a lot of there's a barbell effect, right? Maybe a lot of funding early stage, but you actually don't see right away when you look at all of the money coming into this space is that there's more and more capital going to a smaller and smaller set of companies as folks progress through the rounds. So certainly as a founder, it can feel like, gosh, am I doing something wrong when you haven't raised your next round because of what you read out there? And I've been very open and transparent about our own funding journey in the past with Sounding Board and how challenging it was for Lori and I. And so certainly that's something we feel really passionate about, making sure that we talk about it and also share the challenges around it.
Well, let's talk about that a little. What led you to create Sounding Board?
Yeah, look, I love sharing this story because it's a really personal one. So, my background is I've got way less HR experience than you. I came out of tech and had been at YouTube and Google, and then a few other venture-backed startups here in the Bay Area where I'm based. And I was really lucky in that one of the companies I joined, when I joined, it was only about 30 people. It was a company called Tapjoy in the mobile advertising space. But in the course of 3 years, we ended up going through that Silicon Valley story. So, raised over $50 million in venture capital. We built the business to over $100 million in recurring revenue. And then I personally went from being an individual salesperson to running our entire sales team globally as part of our executive staff. And I'd just never done that job before. And so our CEO and our board at the time, this was over a decade ago, I think if you think about that, pretty forward thinking and saying, hey, Christine and a couple of other executives have never done this before. We need them to be really impactful leaders fast. And so they had me work with the coach to help me make these big transitions. And, the punchline is that coach is Lori, who is now my co-founder.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And she has been a coach to public and private company CEOs for probably as long as they've been certifying coaches. She's done over 25 years in the industry and has really seen the evolution of coaching from a model that was done mainly behind closed doors for underperforming execs to where we're seeing today, it's becoming the go-to modality for your most critical talent, the way that you can up-level and upskill your leaders in a much faster way, given the rapid environmental changes we're seeing in every company. And so it's come a long way since then. And a lot of our approach and methodology, how we think about what's the problem we're solving for the customer, is based on bringing this executive style, strong connection of coaching to business impact into the rest of the org at every level by putting technology at the forefront of it.
Yeah, it's, the focus on, broadly on coaching right now, I agree with you about it being, almost a given that, it's needed. This wasn't a product of the pandemic. And I think because of the timing of things, a lot of folks look at the emergence of players like yourself, like Sounding Board, and might see it that way. But this was, think about all of the transformation happening in business models and, changes in how people were thinking about their business. This has been a trend that it's been illuminated. It's been, it's hackneyed now, but accelerated by COVID and all of the challenges that exist. So that's interesting. Well, that's an interesting partnership. You've got the operational expertise, and she's got the coaching expertise. And that's a great partnership to bring in as co-founders. So how do you deploy to customers? And to, I guess you've got a few constituencies there. How do they each experience the platform?
Yeah, so we primarily work with two types of customers. One is companies that look like ourselves now, sort of later stage hyper growth startups, usually post IPO. So think like Chime or User Testing. They just went IPO, Toast.
Okay.
The other set of customers that we work with and are seeing really strong product market fit around is actually just large global enterprises. So think ConAgra, Intel, a Netflix. Okay. The reason that the solution resonates with both of them, and so it's a B2B solution, we're often engaging with the CLO or talent development, but now we're also seeing that this is happening within each of the functions themselves because the leader there needs their people and their managers to up-level faster.
Okay.
But the reason that those two segments are a really good fit for us is that if you think about both of those companies, they're both going through an incredible amount of change. For the hyper growth companies, you're elevating leaders into middle management, first time management, leadership roles for the first time. But you also can't really envision that every person is going to need the same sort of standard training given the environment that we're in and how quickly it's changing. So coaching is a great model for that because it's entirely customized and personalized to that leader. On the enterprise side, it is what you said, yes, coaching was accelerated by COVID, but leadership development is one of the oldest industries.
Yeah.
And for so many of them, they were relying on in-person standardized training, very sort of, I wouldn't call it outdated, but models that they have been relying on for quite some time to up level and enable their managers. And what they're realizing is that a lot of those aren't having the level of impact that they might have wanted or expected now that they've tried those. And they've seen how well executive coaching has worked at their highest levels. And now they see with, a path to being able to offer that model to a lot more leaders. We coach 70% of the leaders that we coach at Sounding Board are below your executive level. So they see how powerful that can be if they can scale that to a much broader set of employees and to leaders, especially in the environment that we're in now.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned when we were chatting earlier that you don't call it a marketplace, and you had another term for it that is escaping me, but I liked it. So can you talk about that a little bit? How you differentiate from yourself from a marketplace?
Yeah. So there's sort of two things. One is what I'd mentioned. So we call ourselves really a managed network.
Okay.
And so just think about like what that means. If you think about going to a marketplace, think Thumbtack, right? You get brokered into some other professional on the other side. And the marketplace is really just there to connect you, maybe help you filter and sort. Beyond that, the entire experience of the plumber that comes into your house, fixes it, that's actually all just driven by that professional. If you think about a managed network, we actually manage that experience entirely end to end. Sounding Board is responsible for ensuring that our customers are getting the right coach, that those coaches and coachees are working on the right set of goals and skills and capabilities. And we're even managing those engagements all the way through. It also applies to just the way that we've built our network. For a marketplace, a lot of, other companies in our space, they talk about having thousands of coaches and, they, that is sort of an indication of their ability to serve. At Sounding Board, we've always thought about how do you deliver high quality coaching at scale. And so we actually have intentionally built our network a little smaller. We have a few hundred coaches to start, but we highly engage them. They are required to have minimum number of clients they carry with us. There's developmental opportunities, mentoring, a whole community we've invested in. But what that means is that their ability to understand our tools, our methodology, the Sounding Board way, what outcomes we're trying to drive for our company are so much higher because they're spending the majority of their time with Sounding Board and our customers and clients versus us just being one of, say, 10 different types of coaching or development that they do in their own business. So It's just fundamentally a very different model. And we see that, it shows up right in our NPS. We have like an 80+ NPS in terms of our coaching. And we really think it's because we engage our coaches so that they really understand and feel like they're part of the Sounding Board team.
Yeah, the other aspect here is that you're also enabling internal coaches, so that it's not just external or just that managed network. And can you talk about that? Because I think that's I'm seeing a lot of coaching, and I'm hearing about a lot of marketplaces, true marketplaces.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder about the quality of coaching over time, and where do the internal coaches, come into play? So how do you address that?
Yeah. And this really was born out of just what we were hearing from our customers. If you think about some of the largest companies out there, if they're serious about coaching, there's really only so far you can go with an external network, whether that's because of economics, because of your own fundamental belief in how you want to be integrating coaching into your broader employee population. And so we just heard from a lot of our customers that were working with us, like, hey, we love the Sounding Board coaching, but guess what? We have this like whole set of coaches internally. We also have managers and employees that we are developing to have coaching capability. We love the tools you have and the fact that I get incredible transparency and insights and reporting into what's actually happening across those engagements. Could we stand up our own coaches alongside pulling in additional coaching capacity from the Sounding Board network? And for us, we've always had this vision at Sounding Board that we want to be impacting leaders at every level. And for us, it means you have to be touching a broader number of employees within the organization in order to really have that impact. So it was a really just a natural evolution of where we started, which was also just delivering the coaching, moving into group coaching models so we could start to further expand. And with the platform now, they can basically leverage all of these best-in-class tools we've built behind the scenes. You know, our coaches have incredible dashboards to help them track all their engagements, the reporting. Now that can all sit on one system. And that's incredibly powerful for companies. If you think about, for a lot of them, they had no idea actually what was happening with a lot of their coaching engagements.
Yeah, that transparency is key, that control. I want to move along here, and I want to get into the deal. But first, in your release, and as I looked over your site, it talked about AI, and I'm curious where does that fit into the mix? Where does that, and what value does it add?
It's been very specific for us because I think, you know, there's always, especially, you know, you're in tech, people like to use these terms very broadly,
right?
But actually it's how you apply it is how you get the most value out of these technologies. And so today we've started that mostly against coach matching, because what we realized is that actually getting the right match and getting the right relationship and the right coach for someone is actually one of the most fundamental drivers of success in a coaching engagement in terms of you being able to then drive impact and outcomes. And so we actually have a very distinct model for how we do coach matching. Beyond just demographics, profiles, we have an assessment. We also look at social styles, and that really is to replicate this idea of, you know, how does intimacy get created between two people, and how do you do that very quickly when it's all online and you've never met your coach before, when this has to be a very trusted relationship. And so we've seen, we have a 97% success rate on a first match that's driven off of our algorithms and the technology, and we're continuing to iterate that over time. I will say that, you know, one of the big pieces of us closing the Series B and even the Series A we closed earlier this year was an investment in technology. So we're going to continue to push the envelope, especially as we take our software out to market around data, you know, around how do we get both context and also bring that into measurement. And so I'm just excited about being able to apply this, but really doing it all in service of being able to deliver high quality coaching at scale.
Yeah. So what was it about was anything happening internally or externally that led you to close on the Series B now?
Yeah. I mean, I'd said before, funding was challenging for us early on, and we closed our Series A. It was a $13 million round led by Canaan just earlier this year. So certainly you don't need more money at the time that we closed Series B, and we didn't. We've been very efficient in how we have scaled, as well as because of the growth we're seeing in terms of top line revenue. But we also saw, like you said, the market is really accelerating, it's growing. Oftentimes, people think of funding as more stability as a startup. You know, you're more likely to be less risk, you know, you're more likely to be around. They also equate that with sort of size and scale. And we also just had a lot of investors that were following the company and seeing that this was a really interesting and exciting space. And they felt like we had a distinct point of view. And so for us, it was about finding the right partners, and if it made sense for us to accelerate that. Jazz Ventures is leading the round. I'm super excited. Their thesis is unlocking human potential. And they led the Series B in Arianna Huffington's Thrive Global, which is disrupting, call it wellness at scale, with their company. And so I think for us, it was just, we've been really lucky that the investors we have brought in have been incredibly helpful and valuable for us. And so we were just excited to work with John Spinelli, who's joining our board, the entire Jazz partnership. They are a smaller fund, but they get really hands-on. I met with every partner as we were going through diligence. It went very quickly, but we're excited to be able to scale faster with them behind us.
Yeah, that's great. Hopefully, given all of that, it sounds like you probably got terms that you are very pleased with as well. That's important on your side, and I'm not going to get into any of that. But so let's talk about we've talked about your co-founders and how your co-founder and how you came together, and about where you fit in the space. What about the overall ecosystem? How should HR leaders be thinking about Sounding Board, given that you're a little different than other coaching solutions that might be out there right now?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I really think HR and learning leaders, and to be frank, leaders across any function should think about us as a tool that can really help them accelerate their critical talent, and to do it in a way that's actually in alignment with what the organization needs. I think that's something that we've done really well, which is we understand that the coaching and the development is geared towards the individual that we're helping, but we're always doing it with a lens of how do we ensure that that has a broader organizational impact and is helping them actually up level as a leader. So what that means is we have capabilities in our system that can actually be customized to the leadership behaviors that a company may have already defined. We have goals that that individual can choose to share with their manager and collaborate around that alongside their coach. So we're always thinking about what's this ecosystem of stakeholders around the leader that we're coaching, so that we're having impact and they are having impact. But I think the thing that has been really exciting for us to see is just that coaching is now, as a model, almost getting attached to every type of learning that's happening in the organization. We have a lot of companies that are maybe deploying manager training. It's 2 months of, content-driven, standardized curriculum, but then they're left with, how do these leaders actually put that into practice post their training? So we have a lot of folks deploying us alongside training to actually do that transfer of learning. We see companies deploying us against high potentials, ERG. Certainly there's been a lot of attention on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We aren't sort of coaching to DEI, but we see that for them, a big part of that means up-leveling and diversifying their leadership pipeline and their bench. And so being able to have coaching be a way and a modality that those leaders can partake in to up-level their leadership skills is part of their broader strategy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, this has been great. I've really appreciate all the transparency. What's next? Where are you headed with the product, the company? What should we be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, for us, a big investment, like I said, is going into our product and tech, whether that is up-leveling the front-end user interface that, our leaders are going to. We now also have much better understanding of the types of reporting and insights that our customer wants. So we'll also be doing that. And then the big thing for us is it's data, right? It's all about data. How do we continue to embed more context into that experience, make this more relevant into all of the places that are happening in an employee's life cycle and the talent life cycle for a company? So I think you'll start to also see us really start to partner more broadly across the ecosystem, whether that's learning partners, HR tech, and or even solutions for how we make it a more seamless experience for the leader to be able to engage with their coach, right? We have Slack integrations today. There's probably many more that we can do to be able to be embedded in the flow of work.
Right, right. Good point. And where can folks learn more about you?
Yeah, just soundingboardinc.com. I'm Christine at Sounding Board Inc. Certainly, I think, we are out there in the market now, and we'll be present hopefully at some of the conferences you're going to as well. But if you just go to our website, I'm sure, somebody or myself directly can help you.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know how busy you are, and I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much, George. It was a pleasure.
Thanks.